Okay, it's time to get ready to buy Bitcoin and Mara stock soon. I'm going to show you guys what I'm personally looking for, my buy signals. I'm going to show you guys what's backing up these buy signals, what potential weakness we could be keeping an eye on as an early indication that the price is going to potentially go down lower. And then on top of that, I want to go over a question a viewer asked recently as well regarding $80 Mara stock. So first, we're going to go over the Mara chart just to get that one question out the way, and then go over the structure, what I'm looking for, as well as we'll jump over to Bitcoin afterwards. So if you guys are interested, I'm gonna go over two articles as well. But again, everything here is just my own opinion. But if you guys are interested in what the BitU position looks like, I made a video on it yesterday. I closed out of it. I plan to buy back in soon, but we closed out of it at a nice profits for the time duration of the trade as well, and it surpassed my overall swing trade percentage goal at the end of the day. So pretty good 2 weeks for that one. But basically, uh, we have this optimism where stocks are bouncing up regardless of tariffs. Tariffs have been very, very crazy lately. They're continuously, evolving and not really getting better. We have some deadlines coming up soon in August, but we will see how that continues to evolve as well. But there's so much optimism with potential rate cuts happening that, well, it's just everyone's not even thinking about the tariffs. Everyone's just thinking about, just greed in the market. And then as well as today there was some news that Trump want saying that he wants to fire Jerome. It's not new, but it came back up today again, and then he denied it. So there's a lot of mixed emotions in the market right now. That's why I really want to focus on the structures themselves, because at the end of the day, relying just on macro like announcements, basically it's not the way to go right now, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that's probably why we're seeing a lot of this optimism, and I do believe it's starting to fade away. But I also believe it can quickly pick back up, very quickly. I'm gonna give you guys some context on that as well. But um, there's a lot of mixed news in Bitcoin now because a lot of people are saying it's going to go down. A lot of people are saying it's going to continue to go up. So that's just another reason. So besides the stock market, the crypto market, specifically Bitcoin, is just something we don't really want to worry too much about the noise, and we want to focus on the structures themselves, eliminate the noise, and then be better informed and better set up. But here is my conservative, most realistic, just in my own opinion, and I'm explaining why. Uh, the Mara bull cycle top, right? Because I'm gonna get this like bigger picture part out the way, because in order to see 80k Bitcoin, it's really tough. But if you guys look at the big, I'm not gonna zoom out all the way, but if you guys look at the entire Bitcoin, or the entire Mara stock history, it sort of is in this long picture downtrend with not just a couple years back where the lows are actually higher, but it's very, very minimal. And the overall swing highs in every bull cycle top are lower. And this is basically massively influenced by, you know, even though Mara is highly influenced by Bitcoin, you got to keep in mind that, well, Mara has operating expenses to keep operations going, and they have growth expenses. So, every 4 years, Bitcoin becomes increasingly more difficult to mine, and it requires more power. So a large amount of capital has to go into buying more miners, by upgrading the equipment, expanding. So you need to understand that it's not just like Bitcoin where money flows in and out. Mara has a lot of elements into it that um, they need to really focus on. And I do believe that Mara is more focused on the future of their operations than to please the shareholders. And that's probably why the very big picture, if you look at the yearly candles, it you'll see what I mean. But with that being said, the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, $80 Bitcoin, we'll have to see at least one, or at least two massive rate cuts this year for a bunch of optimism just to flow into this stock. And I do believe the stock can go much higher, but until a lot of that, you know, until those hopeful things happen, which I believe we will have more than one rate cut this year. I personally believe that, but I don't believe they're going to be super massive. We'll probably have like two or three, and they'll probably be 0.25% roughly. We just have to see how everything evolves. But as of right now, with the most realistic view for the rest of the year, um, I'm waiting for Mara to continue to release more monthly reports on what they mine, their revenue. Mara is also very well positioned financially compared to other mining companies because they are just mostly issuing more shares and taking out uh, actual debt. So I mean, on top of that, there's a lot of other reasons, but just to keep it simple, so this video is not too long. Mara has a lot of things that they need to look out for because it is a company that operates and it has expenses and income, unlike Bitcoin. So it's, to me, it's unrealistic to assume that just because, and we've seen this many times in the past where Bitcoin goes up and Mara doesn't go up, or there's sometimes where Mara goes up while Bitcoin is coming down. These are two very different beasts that are focused on the same, the same focus in a way. So we just have to keep that in mind. So with that being said, and based off of the structures as we've been keeping a track of it since last year, as of right now, I do believe that Mara realistically can go anywhere from $45 to $65, and really, the risk of, I do believe it's more likely for Bitcoin to not just reach 45, but it's much less likely for it to go into the 60s, and it really just depends on how interest rates in the macro environment shifts over over the next coming over the next few months. It really depends on that, but I do believe we can easily reach 45. We can go from 45 to 50 most realistically. Again, for the rest of this portion, it just highly depends on, of course, the macro stuff, right? So $80 is possible. I wouldn't be blindly just following $80. I believe this estimate is much more realistic to finish off an overall 5 wave for the 5th wave for the overall bull cycle. I need to move this more to the right. But we've been keeping a track on Mara for a while, since last year, uploading videos on it, and we've been, calling price bottoms really well. This is just to, back up the reasoning on why I'm viewing the current structure as it is. But I've been using a lot of fib retracements and extensions very well. They've been holding very, very well with resistance, supports. Like, we've been seeing this happen quite a bit, and especially when Mara bottomed out earlier this year, we caught that pretty well, and we rode up into the imbalance resistance pretty well. Eventually, we came back below it, and we kept keeping track of retracements as strong support areas before the price goes up and and again reached another resistance area that we've been keeping an eye on. So what I'm looking for now, and there's this element of risk where we can see a potential early reversal, and that highly depends on macro. But to keep basically a good eye on, a good track, is this red area is a resistance. It's currently an estimate because we haven't come down into this orange yet. But basically what I'm looking for right now, and this is going to make a little bit more sense with Bitcoin once I cover that, but Mara is just in the short term overextended. We came down only a little bit, and that caused the RSI to come down quite a bit. We're still waiting for the RSI to come down a bit more. In my opinion, this is just going to create a better support to support the first retracement area right here in orange. So I would like to see the price come down into this, break below the support line here briefly. And again, this is going to make sense when I cover Mara for Bitcoin, because any potential, even small weakness in Bitcoin can cause a larger amount of fear in Mara, of course, right? Because they're highly focused on Bitcoin and it highly influences their income, their revenue. But basically, I'm just looking for lower prices, because if we still had strong bullish momentum, we would have seen Bitcoin higher, and we would have seen this just completely, crush this area higher and go much higher from there. But basically what I'm looking for right now is this, where we come down, we try to find support within the orange, go up into resistance and come back down before we can go up higher and start testing this next fib extension, which I recently updated for you guys on the last video, yesterday's video. factoring in all this move that we have right here. This will be if the bullish trend continues and we hold support and we don't break below $14.30, then this will be what I'm looking at for the next area where we can potentially start seeing a top form, and as volume changes as well. But basically that's what I'm looking for right now is we come down into support, we have a move higher, which is lower than this swing high, and of course it'll be lower than this one, creates this bearish trend down into the overall more important support before we eventually bottom out and go up higher. And this can last a while. Like, I'm not keeping track of this with time, I'm keeping track of this with fib levels, and I'm just looking for fib levels to be reached no matter how long it takes. And I do believe we can trend down or even trend sideways within this range before we go up higher for a while. It can last a while, and that's again due to a lot of this optimism we've had in the market, and then also mixed with quite simply investors trying to digest the recent CPI, and not just digesting the recent CPI, but then trying to see if we're actually overvalued or not with these assets, at least in the short term, right? So until that happens, I would not be surprised if we see weakness come down in Bitcoin. Now, in order to say that this, this come down and we go up higher, in order for this to fail, Bitcoin is a bit more ahead of Mara when it comes to the structure. It's a very, very similar structure, in my opinion, with Mara for Bitcoin. So I'm gonna go over Bitcoin, and you guys will see a very, very similar setup. And it will make sense on the risk involved with this. It translates almost perfectly, so it will make sense right now. So as you can see, Bitcoin comes down into this support area in orange, red being the more important ideal support area. We come back up into this resistance. So just like in Mara, where we go down to support, we go up into resistance, this area. We come down one more low, and then we go up higher and form another new all-time high for Bitcoin. So we can see something like this happen with Mara as well. It's a very similar setup. Just Bitcoin is basically like 2 steps ahead of it. But in order to see things change and invalidate this, is that even though I'm very much focused on this price structure at the moment, and by the way, for Bitcoin I expect this to be much, much higher. I believe we can reach 150k, but I'm gonna give you guys a few reasons on why I'm saying what I'm saying right now. So it's very similar to a very simple textbook head and shoulders, where we see this pattern form. We go up like this, come down here, go up, and we come down before we go up higher. So as you can see, it's setting up so far like that pretty well. It's very important to be open-minded and not blindly following one specific expectation, because things can change. And if you're not looking for signs of early indication that things can change, then you'll just be left behind. But yeah, in yesterday's video I said, we're down here, we're into support. Even though I sold yesterday at a profit though, so I'm happy with that. I can still expect the price to come up into this resistance area, and so far it did, and we're starting to see weakness in the price. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come down, not just try to hit the lower boundaries of this yellow retracement, but also break into the bigger red one that's below it. Now, this will just simply provide a retracement from this whole move higher, this uptrend that we've been seeing for a little bit now, for a few weeks really. Finally break. We're starting to see this swing low break, forming a new lower low. We're struggling to go higher to make a new all-time high over the swing high, and we just like in previous videos I said, the moment we break below 100k within this purple area, which I moved it, but we're not paying attention to this anymore, it'll be a very good idea to begin accumulating, in my opinion. And next thing you know, we go up higher, and as we were trending higher, I said, well, we're holding this level pretty well, and I gave you guys this overall next fib area to look at, entering into the green bigger picture fib, and then finding resistance in this more short-term smaller picture resistance area. And that's exactly what we did. And now what I'm looking for is this imbalance right here to be filled, to fill in this area, causing the price to come down, and then potentially even filling this one. This one isn't as significant, unlike these two. I want to see these two more, filled more directly before the price goes up higher. But even though we're ahead of the game when it comes to Mara in Bitcoin, where we come down into support, orange support, good. We broke these low swing highs to go up higher into resistance, good. We can potentially start seeing the bears take over in the short term and cause some weakness right now. But here's an element, and if this element happens in Bitcoin, it can highly influence Mara as well, at least in the short term, because regardless, there's a lot of optimism in the overall market. So I do believe that if what I'm about to show you guys happens with Bitcoin, then it can very much happen with Mara as well, and it'll be the indicator will be Bitcoin instead of the indicator being Mara or its own structure. But basically, just to make this easier to look at, I'll do pink. It's a little too light with the blue. Hold on. Yeah, this is a little tough. I think this one, yeah, you can see this one. So basically what I'm looking for right now is I'm still looking for lower prices. This is a support area in case we hold a higher low and we break over it, or we bounce here and break over the swing high, indicating that there's potentially a bottom that was in and we're just going to start going higher. This is to stay open-minded, to understand where's the weakness when it comes to the price going down lower, finding support, and then going up higher and becoming stronger, right? So I'm looking for lower prices down here. Now we can easily come down into this area, find support, and go up a little higher, but as long as we don't break over this swing high, then I do believe still the overall momentum is to come down lower and break below 115k. I believe we could reach even 108k all the way down into this area where the fib ends, but even if that happens, like I would not shy away from Bitcoin exposure whatsoever, but I do believe it has a chance to go between 115 and 110,000. But we, just like I said in previous video too, and the reason I want to stress the possibility of this being invalidated is that, well, besides all the optimism in the market, I said in previous videos that, eventually if Bitcoin finds a top before hitting the next fib line, well, we could potentially look at the bottom first fib line at 114.5k as potential support. We're still holding above 14.5k. We're holding above it, and we're going up. We're sort of like trending higher. The RSI is still kind of weak though. So in order to strengthen that and to say that, like, hey, yeah, maybe we did bottom, it will be finding support within this area. Is it an area to look at, and it can even even if you don't believe it'll go higher, it still presents an opportunity to potentially make a short-term small trade where we come down into the small support, and in order to benefit from a potential earlier rally without hitting the overall support would be taking and focusing on position sizing, will be accumulating within this area a reasonable position for the risk involved here. SL being, for example, this swing low, and then your TP can even be this swing high right here, or even the top of the fib blue, which is 122.3k. So like that would be a really good small way to hedge the possibility of it going lower, instead of just hoping for it. Maybe taking small position in this area would be a good idea in my opinion. Again, SL at the bottom of the swing low and TP being the top of this fib, in case we're going to see something more like that's, just in case taking this small trade it's responsible with as long as you have an SL, because we can still have the possibility of hitting this, going up higher, creating a double top before the price comes down into the overall support, and then eventually rallies much higher. So that's just just in case. It's just an extra trade on the side, just to just not be left out completely. But if this fails, and so far we're showing weakness, we're in resistance, we're gonna let the RSI come down. At this point though, for the RSI to bottom out, it can very much easily break below this swing low. There's enough momentum right now where we're seeing a little bit of a more decent 3-wave move that can bring the price down into this area. And just to support it, before I end the video, if you use a simple extension tool, you can see that, and I need to color code these somehow, but basically it shows that if the price continues to trend down, breaking this smaller support, which I personally think it won't really hold, in the sense of like it can still consolidate within this area and have a smaller pump, to maybe go up a little bit, but I don't believe if that were to happen, I don't believe it will break the swing high, but it's still good to keep it in mind. But the overall view right now is that we're gonna just do whatever, fluctuate our way down, but overall come down into the red support area. As you can see with the current move as it is, um, the extension shows that, hey, it's overlapping this area quite well, and it makes the most sense at the moment, right? Because as CPI already happened, so a lot of these short-term investors that pump the price up, mostly whales, are probably looking to use these fake outs, these bullish fake outs, as a way to sell what they bought here, lock in their profit, and sell to people what will be potentially something that's going to go down more, and fill in all this volume, all this cash that was put in right here. As it exits, we can potentially come down into these levels, allowing the red to be filled. So that's just my opinion. This is an early indication with the swing high being broken. There'll be an early indication that, hey, we're potentially done with the correction. I don't believe it will really happen, but I'm still keeping an eye on it just in case. And the overall view right now, for me, what makes the most sense is, again, eventually coming down between 110 to 115K will be where I really, really want to start accumulating again. But the moment we break back into the orange area, I'll begin to lightly accumulate, but and then continue accumulating with support being around this area. I'd rather be early than to try to time a bottom. But yeah, hopefully this video made sense, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one.